PPT ಕೊಡ್ತೇನೆ
17 ಅಂತ ಹಾಕಿಲ್ಲ
17. ಹಲೋ ನಿಂಗೆ ಆಮೇಲೆ ಹಚ್ತೀನ ಆಮೇಲೆ ಬಾಯ್ ಯಾವ್ದು ಮೇಡಮ್
17 ಹಾ ಅದೇ Hello, good morning, students.
Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning. Are you there?
Yes, ma'am.
Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
ma'am.
Am I audible?
yes, ma'am.
You can unmute yourself and respond, please. Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Students, am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Hello. Hello.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Good morning, students.
Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning,
Hello.
ma'am.
Morning, ma'am.
Hello. Good morning.
Good morning, ma'am. Good morning, ma'am.
Chaitanya, Prasanna, Ankit, Meghna, am I audible?
Yes, ma'am, you're audible.
You are audible. Please continue the lecture.
Please unmute yourself and respond me.
Ma'am,
Ma'am, you're audible.
ma'am, please increase the volume of your speakers.
Am I audible? Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. We can hear.
Yes, ma'am.
Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, Shrushti,
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Arun, yes, anyone? Respond, please. Am I audible to you?
ಕರೆಕ್ಟ್ ಅವ್ರು ರಿಪ್ಲೈ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ ಕರೆಕ್ಟ್ ಇದೆ ಸರ್.
ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಎಂದ್ರು ಹಾಕ್ಯಾರ ಮೆಸೇಜ್ ಆಡಿಬಲ್ ಅಂತ. ಓಕೆ ಫೈನ್. Okay, I got the message now. I'm audible. So today I'm going to start with the yes. Can you see the screen? The remaining minerals which
Yes,
are
ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
trace elements, right? Few more elements which are required in very less quantity and again carry out functions, but their requirement and efficiency manifestations and the functions, how they carry out in our body, that we'll see one by one, right? So the remaining elements are chromium, cobalt, manganese, molybdenum and selenium. So we are going to cover these 5 elements today. Okay. So starting with the first element, that is chromium. Its distribution in the body is around 6 milligram. What are the sources? Yeast, molasses, meat products, cheese and whole grains are the good sources of chromium. Its requirement is 0.5 to 20 milligram per day. For normal healthy adult, its requirement is 0.5 to 20 milligram per day. Chromium content in the blood, its normal level in the blood is around 20 milligram per deciliter. So what are the functions of this chromium? Mainly it controls or maintains the blood glucose level within normal limits and thus helps in maintaining or helping the transport as well as increasing utilization of glucose, that is uptake of glucose is increased and thus it helps to maintain the blood glucose level. So the main function of chromium is control of glucose and the lipid metabolism and thus it helps to lower the cholesterol level also. So these are the two important functions. Other than that, it helps in lipoprotein metabolism and thus also it helps to control the cholesterol level only, right? So chromium helps to maintain the blood glucose level and to carry out the lipid metabolism and thus helps to lower the cholesterol level. It acts as a cofactor for insulin and thus increases glucose utilization or uptake of glucose and helps in increasing the insulin receptor mediated signaling and thus maintains the blood glucose level within normal range, that is around 70 to 110 milligram per deciliter. It also helps for transport of amino acid into the cells. With the help of this, maintaining the normal metabolic functions or metabolic reactions of glucose and lipid. Its important role is in lowering the cholesterol level it decreases LDL cholesterol level. All of you know that LDL cholesterol is a bad cholesterol and HDL cholesterol is a good cholesterol. So this HDL cholesterol helps in transport of lipid from what? From tissues to liver, right? And thus it maintains to lower the cholesterol level within normal limits, so that it helps or it tends to decrease the cholesterol level. What are the deficiency manifestation? As it helps in maintaining the glucose level, so deficiency of chromium leads to impaired glucose intolerance, insulin resistance, and also one more deficiency, that is weight loss. It affects the glucose uptake and thus it tends to decrease the weight loss. As a hexavalent form, chromium 6+, as a hexavalent form, it has a strong oxidizing property, and due to that it shows the more toxic effects than that of the trivalent form of the chromium. The hexavalent form of chromium is has more strong oxidizing property, so it has more toxic effects than that of the trivalent form. And the toxicity symptoms seen are inflammation and necrosis of the skin and nasal passages. It has allergic contact dermatitis and lung cancer. Oral ingestion can result in damage to the GI tract, and it will also lead to renal failure. So these are the toxicity symptoms of the chromium. What are the toxicity symptoms? Inflammation and necrosis of the skin, nasal passages, allergic contact dermatitis and lung cancer. Oral ingestion can result in damage to the GI tract and it will lead to renal failure also. So these are the toxicity symptoms of chromium. So what are the functions of chromium is mainly maintaining the blood glucose level as well as the cholesterol level, and thus it helps in carrying out the metabolism of this carbohydrate and lipid, right? And also it helps in absorption of amino acid also. So thus chromium plays important role in maintaining the metabolic activities of carbohydrate, lipid and amino acids. Okay, so this is about chromium and its toxicity. It will lead to necrosis of the skin and then inflammation around the nasal passages, allergic contact dermatitis. It will also lead to lung cancer, damage to the GI tract, and also it will lead to renal failure condition. So this is about chromium, right? We'll go little fast because already late. So we'll proceed to the next element, that is cobalt. Cobalt, all of you already studied with vitamin B12, right? What is vitamin B12 is? Cobalamin, right? So mainly with the cobalamin, it will provide its fulfillment requirement. So it is not fixed or not established properly that this much is the daily requirement of the cobalt. So it is abundantly present in liver, pancreas along with the vitamin B12. What is the function? As an integral part of vitamin B12, vitamin B12, it will provide its function, and so it will prevent from the anemia, which you already studied that deficiency manifestations of vitamin B12 is the anemia, mainly the pernicious anemia. So cobalt as an integral part of vitamin B12 carry out various functions and thus it prevents from the anemia. Cobalt content of vitamin B12 is about 4% by its weight, and thus it carries out its function. Administration of cobalt stimulates the production of erythropoietin, which promotes erythrophoresis. So thus it carries out its function. So cobalt along with vitamin B12, it carries out its function. So obviously deficiency manifestations of cobalt are related to deficiency of vitamin B12. So the signs and symptoms of vitamin B12 deficiency are the same deficiency manifestations for cobalt, right? So an excess of cobalt can lead to polycythemia, that is increased RBC in the blood. What is polycythemia? Is increased RBC in blood. So that is the toxicity of this cobalt which will lead to polycythemia. So what all about cobalt is, as an integral part of vitamin B12, it carries out various functions. So cobalt administration stimulates the production of erythropoietin, which promotes the erythropoiesis. So deficiency manifestations of cobalt are similar to the deficiency manifestations of vitamin B12. So it will lead to anemia, that is pernicious anemia, while as the toxicity conditions of cobalt will lead to polycythemia, where there is increased RBC in the blood. So this is about the second element, that is cobalt. So we'll proceed to the third element, that is manganese. So what is manganese? Distribution throughout the body is, in an adult human body, about 15 to 20 milligram of manganese is distributed throughout the body. It is mainly found in nuclei, where it gives stability to the nucleic acid. Mainly in the human body, it is found in the nucleus, and thus it gives stability to the nucleic acid, that is DNA and RNA. Right? So in that way, manganese plays its role also, right? So it is widely distributed both in animal sources as well as in the vegetable sources. So animal source as well as vegetable source, it is distributed widely. So there are hardly any deficiency manifestations related to the manganese. But as it is widely distributed in all in the animal and the vegetable sources, it will play important role in various reactions. So as a part of various enzymes, it plays important role in many reactions that we'll see under functions. So what is the dietary allowance? That is 2.5 to 5 milligram per day. The daily requirement of this manganese is 2.5 to 5 milligram per day. As I told, it is widely distributed in all animal and the vegetable sources. It carries out wide varieties of the functions and mainly with the as a cofactor or activator. So either it is a part of enzyme or it helps that enzyme to carry out the reaction. So as a cofactor or as a activator, it is involved in many enzymatic reactions. Which are those reactions? Arginase. Arginase we will study in urea cycle, that is formation of urea, right? So urea is formed from ammonia, the urea cycle. So arginase is one of the important enzyme which is present only in liver, which is synthesized only in liver and which is necessary for formation of urea. Then glutamine synthesis of glutamine from ammonia. Then pyruvate carboxylase, gluconeogenesis, carboxylation of pyruvate, so that it will form again back the glucose also. So it's a gluconeogenesis reaction. It is one of the important key enzymes of glycolysis. There are three key enzymes of glycolysis. So pyruvate carboxylase is one of the important key enzyme which is involved in gluconeogenesis. Then next is superoxide dismutase. Again, it is one of the important in lipid peroxidation reaction, that is, it will prevent the toxicity of the free radicals. So in that way it is involved in detoxification. Then decarboxylase, removal of carbon dioxide. So in TCA cycle, formation of carbon dioxide or removal of carbon dioxide from utilization of glucose, that is by decarboxylase type of enzymes. Then succinate dehydrogenase, again it is one of the important enzyme in the TCA cycle. So as a cofactor or as a activator, this manganese helps in various enzymatic reactions such as activity of arginase, glutamine synthase, pyruvate carboxylase, superoxide dismutase, decarboxylase, succinate dehydrogenase. As an integral part of glycosyl transferase enzyme, it is involved in synthesis of glycoproteins. You have studied glycoproteins and proteoglycans, right? Glycosaminoglycans, polysaccharides, right? So as an integral part of this glycosyl transferase, it is involved in synthesis of glycoproteins and proteoglycans. Other than that, as an integral part of other enzymes, it is involved in metabolism of hemoglobin and cholesterol also. So integral part of enzyme, it is involved in hemoglobin and cholesterol metabolism. It is also required for physical growth and to carry out the reproductive functions. Required for physical growth and to carry out the reproductive functions. It plays important role in formation of connective and bony tissue. Connective tissue such as collagen, elastin, right? Keratin. So as an important role, it plays important role in formation of the connective tissue as well as the tissues present in bony tissues, right? So it functions with vitamin K in the formation of prothrombin and thus involved in blood coagulation reaction. So along with vitamin K, manganese is involved in formation of prothrombin and thus plays important role in blood coagulation reaction. It is also required for RNA polymerase activity and thus involved in overall growth of the body. Now, what are the deficiency manifestation of manganese? As I told that it is available abundantly in plant and animal foods. So deficiency are rare. So hardly we can observe the impaired growth and skeletal deformities due to deficiency of this manganese. While as in animals, manganese deficiency leads to sterility and bone deformities. So in animals, manganese deficiency leads to sterility and bone deformities, while as rare deficiency manifestations or hardly deficiency is observed in human beings, but sometimes due to this impaired growth or skeletal deformities can be also observed. So as important part, that is cofactor or activator of various enzymes, it is involved in various reactions. So this is about manganese. Okay. Now the next element, that is molybdenum, which is denoted as Mo, right? So what are the sources of this molybdenum? Liver, kidney are the good sources along with the meat. Meat, that is the good source of molybdenum. Whole grains, legumes and leafy vegetables are also the vegetable sources, right? Then what is the recommended dietary allowance? 0.50 into 0.5 milligram per day. So its requirement is very less. That much 0.5 milligram per day molybdenum is required. 60 to 70% of this molybdenum is absorbed by the small intestine, while as its mobilization and utilization is decreased. It decreases the mobilization and utilization of the copper in the body. So molybdenum, it decreases the mobilization and utilization of the copper in the body, right? So due to that, what will happen? It will hamper the copper metabolism. Now, the functions of molybdenum. It is a constituent of different enzymes such as xanthine oxidase. So xanthine oxidase, it is involved in formation of uric acid, right? Purine metabolism, formation of uric acid from the purine. So xanthine oxidase as a one of the important enzyme in forming the uric acid. Then aldehyde oxidase, it is the enzyme which carry out the conversion of retinal to retinoic acid. What is retinal? It is one of the form of vitamin A, right? So retinal is converted to retinoic acid, that is oxidation of retinal to retinoic acid. So oxidation of retinal to retinoic acid is carried out by the enzyme aldehyde oxidase. Then sulfite oxidase, it carries out the oxidation of sulfur containing amino acid. Oxidation of sulfur containing amino acid. So in that way, as a constituent of these enzymes such as xanthine oxidase, aldehyde oxidase and sulfite oxidase, molybdenum is involved in uric acid formation, retinoic acid formation and metabolism of sulfur containing amino acid. So these are the functions of molybdenum. So as it is involved in conversion of xanthine to uric acid, so if this enzyme is deficient, it will lead to the xanthinuria. It will lead to the xanthinuria. Along with that, it will also leads to low plasma level of this and urinary uric acid concentration. Low levels of uric acid because xanthine is not further broken down or converted to uric acid as the enzyme xanthine oxidase is absent. So there will be decreased level of uric acid in blood as well as in urine. All of you know that uric acid is one of the normal constituent of the urine, right? Organic constituent of the urine. So as xanthine is not further converted to uric acid, the concentration of uric acid in the blood as well as in the urine is low. And it will lead to xanthinuria, that is excretion of xanthine instead of excretion of uric acid. So it will lead to xanthinuria. Again, the congenital deficiency of sulfite oxidase has been said to produce severe brain damage. So few researchers which they have studied about this sulfite oxidase and they have supported that it may lead to severe brain damage. So as per the statistics or as per the study carried out by some researchers, they have reported that there might be the brain damage due to deficiency of this enzyme, that is sulfite oxidase. So the deficiency manifestations of molybdenum, one is xanthinuria along with decreased concentration of uric acid in the blood and urine, and the second deficiency manifestation is due to the sulfite oxidase enzyme, it may produce the brain damage. Then if the molybdenum is taken in excess, it will lead to molybdenosis. Again, it is a rare condition, and if the intake of molybdenum is high, it will lead to impaired growth, diarrhea and anemia, and also it will lead to intestinal diminished absorption of copper in the intestine. So if molybdenum is taken in excess, at that time it will diminish the absorption of the copper in the intestine. So these are the toxicity symptoms of molybdenum. Okay. So as a part of three important enzymes, that is xanthine oxidase, aldehyde oxidase and sulfite oxidase. It is involved in various reactions. Deficiency is related to xanthinuria, that is xanthine oxidase enzyme, so that the xanthine is excreted more in urine and it will not further converted to uric acid. So low concentration of uric acid in blood as well as in urine. And the deficiency of sulfite oxidase, it may lead to severe brain damage. If it is taken in excess, it will lead to impaired growth, diarrhea and anemia, and also it will diminish or decreases the intestinal absorption of the copper, right? So this is about molybdenum. Now the next important element is selenium. Next element is selenium, which is written as Se. This selenium is mainly present in the soil, right? So selenium is mainly present in the soil. So the food grown depending upon the area that is on the soil, right? The soil which is present in different regions. According to that, its concentration varies. It is present in liver, kidney, seafoods and meat also, but grains have a variable content. It will vary because of the region where they are grown. Then the recommended dietary allowance is 50 to 200 microgram per day for normal healthy adult. What is the daily requirement is? It is not in milligram, it is in microgram. So 50 to 200 microgram per day for normal healthy adult. Again, one more point related to this selenium is, which is present is in the form of selenocysteine. So selenocysteine is now considered as 21 number of amino acid because it has important role in protein biosynthesis. So up till now we were used to tell that there are 20 amino acids which are present in abundant and they form the protein structure. But recently the 21st amino acid, which is denoted as selenocysteine, which plays important role in protein biosynthesis. So selenium is important part of this selenocysteine amino acid. So that also you can mention. So what are the functions? Functions as a non-specific intracellular antioxidant. So as a part of glutathione peroxidase enzyme or glutathione, it plays important role in preventing the oxidation from the free radicals, preventing the oxidation of the free radicals so that it will prevent from the toxic effect of the free radicals, and thus it acts as a important antioxidants. So usually we ask in examination the question as antioxidants. So antioxidants, there are vitamin antioxidants, enzymatic antioxidants and the elements or minerals which act as an antioxidant, and the products which are formed in the body like uric acid which is formed in the body. So element like selenium, it acts as an antioxidant. Vitamins, vitamin E, vitamin C, they act as antioxidant. While as enzymes such as superoxide dismutase, glutathione peroxidase. So as a part of the enzyme selenium, it acts as an antioxidant and prevents development of hepatic necrosis and muscular dystrophy. So its function is complementary to vitamin E and thus it acts as a sparing action of vitamin E also, right? Then next function is as a constituent of selenocysteine, glutathione peroxidase is important in preventing the lipid peroxidation and protecting the cell against damage of the free radicals by the superoxide radical. So as a constituent of selenocysteine, it is a part of the enzyme glutathione peroxidase also. Other than part of glutathione, it is part of glutathione peroxidase also. Selenocysteine directly incorporates during protein biosynthesis and thus selenium plays important role in protein biosynthesis. Now the next function is, it is a constituent of iodothyronine deiodinase. Iodothyronine deiodinase, and thus it plays important role in formation of triiodothyronine, that is T3. So conversion of T4 to T3. So as a constituent of iodothyronine deiodinase enzyme, selenium as a constituent of iodothyronine deiodinase enzyme plays important role in conversion of T4 to T3. It also plays important role in sperm motility, and thus it is involved in reproduction. Maintaining the structural integrity of the biological membranes. It helps in maintaining the structural integrity of the biological membranes. It also binds with the certain heavy metals such as mercury and cadmium. As it binds with the heavy metal such as mercury and cadmium, and thus protect the body from the toxic effect of these heavy metals. Toxic effect of heavy metals, by binding with these metals, it protects our body. It causes, but this is about human beings, but toxicity can be observed in animals. Toxicity can be observed in animals, which is called as a alkali disease, but in smaller amounts it is its importance, so it will not cause much more toxic effects. Now the deficiency manifestations. Thyroxine, that is T4, is converted to triiodothyronine, that is T3, in presence of the enzyme deiodinase enzyme, right? In presence of the enzyme iodothyronine deiodinase enzyme, and thus it is involved in hypothyroidism. So due to deficiency of this enzyme, it will lead to decreased T3 level, and thus it will lead to hypothyroidism. Selenium deficiency has been associated in some areas of China, as it depends, it is abundantly present in the soil and depending upon the region. So earlier it was found in this area, but later on again it has been seen that it will not cause much more effect. So in certain areas, as its concentration is less, it may lead to Keshan disease, and which will show the symptoms such as cardiomyopathy that primarily affects the children and women of childbearing age. Right? So in that way, its deficiency manifestations are observed. Its most common symptoms include dizziness, loss of appetite, nausea, abnormal electrocardiograms, and congestive heart failure. So what are the deficiency manifestations? Mainly observed symptoms are dizziness, loss of appetite, nausea, abnormal electrocardiograms, and congestive heart failure. So these are the deficiency manifestations of selenium. Now the deficiency observed in animals are muscular dystrophy, pancreatic fibrosis, and reproductive disorders. Deficiency manifestations seen in animals are muscular dystrophy, pancreatic fibrosis, and reproductive disorders, because it has a role in sperm motility also, right? So this is all about the deficiency manifestations. Now we'll see about the toxic effects. So increased level of selenium, that is called as selenosis, right? So it has a toxic effect mainly in the animals. It will lead to the alkali disease. So why this toxicity is observed? Because of the compounds which are used, or the utensils which are used, which will have a metal polishings, right? and anti-rust compounds which are formed in the metals, those metals which are used for as the utensils for cooking of the food. So it will lead to selenosis. Excessive selenium intake results in alkali disease, which is characterized by loss of hair, nails, diarrhea, weight loss, skin lesions, liver, and neuromuscular disorders, which are usually fatal, and also it will show the emotional disturbances. So excess intake of selenium, it is characterized by loss of hair and nails, diarrhea, weight loss, skin lesions, liver, neuromuscular disorders which are usually fatal, and also the emotional disturbances. So this selenium, why its concentration will be more? Because of the, as a component of dimethyl selenide, it will also show the garlic odor in the breath of the person, those who consume more selenium, right, as a component of dimethyl selenide. So how we can identify the selenosis is by garlic odor in the breath. So such points you can remember so that you can identify the cases, right? Which will help in diagnosis of different diseases. So characteristic symptoms which you have to remember. So here we have covered the few minor elements such as chromium, cobalt, manganese, molybdenum and selenium, right? So I hope all of you have understood this, and the typical characteristics, either it may be deficiency manifestation or it may be the toxic effect, it may be the hypocondition or it may be the hypercondition. So accordingly you can write the functions also, because it is involved in metabolism of those, and deficiency will lead to due to the metabolic activity is hampered or metabolism is affected. Due to that it will show the symptoms, and also we can judge with the help of its concentration in the blood and urine. So accordingly we can diagnose the disease. So I'll show you few cases today, and again time permits in next class, or probably if you want I'll mail you, right? So we'll discuss, because time is short and we have started already late, so hardly 2 to 3 cases. We'll just go fast. A 14-year-old boy admitted in a hospital due to abdominal pain and seizures with other complaints of behavioral problem. He had a his parents complained that he has a behavioral problem, he has a fatigue and weakness. Then when he was examined, he was found as anemic and his liver was enlarged. So anemic and liver enlargement. His eyes showed presence of golden pigment ring around the cornea, which is called as the Kayser-Fisher ring. So this ring around cornea, golden pigment ring around cornea, where we have seen which metal? Mainly the which important metal? Copper, right? So in that way the copper toxicity is Wilson's disease, right? So in that way you can identify the case. So again you have to focus what is the normal serum copper level. Normal range is 100 microgram and its level is less. Serum ceruloplasmin 25 to 50 microgram, and urinary copper is 100 microgram per deciliter, which is we should be always less than 25 microgram per deciliter. So these are the lab findings. With that you can identify the condition. Now the next case is a 54-year-old grossly overweight woman presented with the complaints of cramps and spasm of both hands. she was depressed and positive trousers and take signs. Past medical history revealed history of thyroidectomy for Graves' disease. So past history also matters, thyroidectomy. And then you have to concentrate on the lab findings. Serum creatinine 1 milligram %, that is within the normal range itself. Serum calcium 4.1 milligram %. So here the normal range is not given, but you should know that the normal serum calcium level is 9 to 11 milligram %. So it is less. So obviously it is a case of hypocalcemia, and it will support with the complaints such as cramps and spasm of both hands, as well as the particular sign, that is positive trousers and show off sign, right? So with that, it will clearly indicate about the hypocalcemia. So in that way, you have to remember the functions and deficiency manifestation, and thus it will help you to diagnose the case. Because as per the CBME pattern, the long essay question is mainly the case based. So with this case, it will be asked to explain the homeostasis of calcium metabolism, how it is maintained, the normal calcium level is maintained within normal limits. So first of all, you have to identify the case, and then you have to answer the questions related to the case, and then further calcium metabolism also, right? Along with that, you have to mention the functions of the calcium, deficiency manifestations of the calcium, and which hormone plays important role in maintaining the calcium level. So in that way, you have to prepare for the case-based questions or long essay questions, mainly as a clinical aspect, right? So in this way, you have to prepare or understand different minerals, and obviously the cases along with that. So deficiency manifestations and functions, you focus more importantly, so that you can write or you can justice for the long essay questions. Okay. So we'll stop here, right? So that we can start with the cases. If you are interested, I'll mail you the cases. I'll prepare about the cases related to this chapter, that is mineral metabolism, and I'll mail you. So I need a response then, and then only I'll continue, because you are not responding in the class either yes or no. You have understood that questions also, not about the subject proper. So please be attentive, though this is not for the IA examination, but it will be for the prelim and final examination. So please attend the classes and concentrate it properly and prepare accordingly. Okay. So hope all of you understood the chapter mineral metabolism. Is it clear to you? Here we have completed the chapter mineral metabolism. Iron already covered, right? And in this month we have covered calcium, phosphorus, then magnesium, sulfur, then zinc, fluorine, iodine, then next manganese, fluorine, then next today we have covered cobalt, chromium, molybdenum, right, and selenium. Okay, so in this way we have covered all the minerals. Okay, so we'll stop. Am I clear to you?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Whether the chapter is clear to you? Shall we stop?
Yes.
Any questions regarding this? Actually, we have started late because of the network issue, right? So still in fast I covered all the points related. We haven't missed any point. It's clear? Okay. Thank you. You can leave the meeting.